Note that the Meta Quest 3 will be 85% cheaper, or 7 times cheaper than Apple's device. Puts it not just out of reach for the average American, it puts it out of reach for nearly every American.
With the device being priced at $3,500, as great as it is, I'm not certain that this is innovation for the masses, but rather more perhaps a novelty toy for the privileged.
Hi everyone, this is Zach with the Money Channel. Apple has officially announced its foray into the future with its mixed reality headset. Soon after, Meta announced its Quest 3 headset. After the Disney collaboration showcase, it's all looking really shiny. But the big question is, will people spend $3,500?
King Lip, Baker Avenue Wealth Management. He owns both Apple and Meta. It's good to see you. So what's your first reaction?
I thought the expectations were high, for today's update. And I think that's why the stock was up so nicely over the last 2 weeks. However, I didn't see any particular surprises from the conference, which is the reason why I think after the announcement of the Vision Pro device, the stock is down at the moment.
So you don't see anything that happened today as a potential game changer for this company?
No, not particularly. The reason why we say that is because if you look at the Vision Pro device, from what we just learned, there's a lot of great technology that's been packed into that device. However, what's not as clear is whether this is really innovation for the masses. If I look at sort of prior product launches, the AirPods or the iWatch, those were clear innovation for the masses where earnings growth and revenue soared on those devices. But with the device being priced at $3,500, as great as it is, I'm not certain that this is innovation for the masses, but rather more perhaps a novelty toy for the privileged.
You say that Apple shares are fairly valued. I want you to tell me why you think that.
We believe the shares are fairly valued at this moment in time. The reason why we say that is we don't think there's a lot of earnings growth this year. We're actually anticipated to see a negative earnings growth this year, about 2% or so. But there's other parts of the Apple business that continue to grow, being the services business. It continues to be very attractive, where it requires a higher multiple, if you would. Relative to 5-year to 10-year historical valuations, Apple is trading pretty much in line with those historical averages. So we think the stock is neither cheap or particularly expensive at this point in time. However, looking out to, say, 2024 to 2025, that's where we think the earnings growth will resume. So this year, probably pretty modest in terms of earnings growth. 2024 to 2025, we're looking at average annualized earnings growth of about 10%, which is actually above average of where Apple was at in the last couple of years.
Kind of unusual for Apple to be coming out with something this expensive. How's it going to affect the market and perhaps Meta?
Well, in some regards, it's actually not that expensive. It turns out on an inflation-adjusted basis, it's actually $50 cheaper than the first Apple One. And if you saw their presentation today, they emphasized the fact that it is essentially an HD sound system, an ultra-high definition television, an iPhone, and a video game console, and the cost certainly shows that.
Okay, but this also potentially, it seems to me, poses a problem for Meta because they seem to be taking more of the traditional gaming console approach of we'll take a loss on the hardware to get it out there and build an ecosystem and then make money down the line. If Apple can sell enough of these things, right, the Vision Pros for $3,500 and build an ecosystem stronger than Meta's, then all these tens of billions of dollars they're spending go up in flames, don't they?
Certainly when you take a look at Apple in the smartphone category today, they've got roughly a quarter share globally, but 3/4 of App Store revenues, while still leaving a very large lane for Android. But you're not wrong to say that the ecosystem approach is where we're going to win or lose over time. Apple boasts the fact that hundreds of thousands of apps will ship day one supporting the XR headset. At the same time, we should note that the Meta Quest 3 will be 85% cheaper, or 7 times cheaper than Apple's device. Puts it not just out of reach for the average American, it puts it out of reach for nearly every American.
Meta's shareholders are paying the price for that, right? Because Meta is selling, the reason why they're so cheap is because Meta's selling them at a loss. Meta isn't exactly taking the Android approach to this. I don't think Google spent tens of billions of dollars developing Android. They left others to develop the hardware. They managed to sort of support their own ecosystem on the strength of giving something away, giving some software away for free. So what are Meta's options here, and at what point does it become a binary, Apple wins, others lose?
Well, I think when you take a look at nearly every computing platform, there's rarely evidence that a single platform is going to win. It's usually shared by two or three, typically two. And Meta is clearly going for the global mainstream consumer. There is still a question of how long is it going to take Apple to build down? Again, $3,500. When you take a look at the average smartphone today, it's still purchased for about $60 to $70 globally. And so it's now a battle of timelines. Can Meta start to build up more of a beachfront with its developers while also building up a toehold globally? But the clock is ticking. We see that now.
Well, just simply the math that they announce a new hardware product category once every 5 to 10 years, so that puts it in a special case for a company that is very measured in terms of how they make these announcements. But I do want to point out two things that make Apple product innovation great. There were two product features in here that no other mixed reality headset has. Number one is the ability for the user to have their eyes on the real world at the same time. There is a primal instinct with humans. This may sound obscure, but a primal instinct that humans want to have some form, even if it's a passing, their eyes on the real world. That's one of the reasons why VR headsets have not taken off. They picked up on that. I was glad to see that. Second is gestures, and eyes are what is the controlled interface for this. That's important so you don't have to have complicated ways of interacting with these devices. This is important. Ultimately, it will take time for the use cases to form, but they are off to a great start when it comes to the technology piece. The price is prohibitive. All that's true, but you just need to take a step back. Look at the bigger picture here. Our collective lives are going to have a kind of a spectrum of devices we're going to use, and I believe eventually 10% of Apple's revenue is going to come from this wearable.
How do you see the evolution of this product and the price, let's say a year or 2 years out?
I think it's below $1,000. It's a light year away from where we're at today, and I would also add that I think that there's going to be a family of products around here. We are hyper-focused on this announcement today, but Tim Cook has long talked about the power of augmented reality. This is not augmented reality. This is a step before it. Augmented reality is more or less glasses. But to answer your question, Karen, I think it's sub $1,000, $700 actually is I think where it starts to get mainstream. And if you're going to ask me what year we're going to get to that, it's probably 5 years from now, 2028. So we're many years out. The good news is that a little of this is priced in. Investors are going to be wait and see approach. A little of it's priced in, and there is optionality as we start to see a family of products come out. The price comes down. I think it gives room for Apple investors to get more excited about what the segment can do.